Well, well, well.
Welcome.
John Redcorn.
Peggy Hill.
Well, well, well. John Redcorn, the scourge of the internet, and my newest video. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about King of the Hill, or more specifically, John Redcorn. Yes, every character calls him that, including Nancy.
Morning, John Redcorn.
Or barring that, it's Mr. Redcorn. I don't know, is it because they aren't on a personal enough level with him? Like they're only friends with him because of Nancy?
Seems like Nancy has already hit the ultimate personal level with him, but who can say?
What was that? Or is it like another form of positive discrimination, where they think they're doing the right thing by calling him by his full name, and he's just too lazy to correct them? Like how everybody sounds out every syllable in David's last name, or thinks Khan's from Japan.
Maybe he's just trying to maintain a brand awareness, like Strickland Propane. He's John Redcorn, baby, and don't you forget it. But that seems a little unnecessary. Who could forget him? Cotton is the one who's been known to give the girlies amnesia, but John seems quite memorable.
Amnesia? Wait, who are you?
Oh, just a passing skeleton, one with a passion for reviews, someone who's been reviewed to death.
I think I've seen you around these parts.
Oh gosh, it's so nice to be noticed. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh my god, this is a collab. Let's discuss. Oh my god, are you in?
100%. This is my jam.
Skeletons first, not ladies. Wait, is that racist?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Just please refrain from calling me a bonehead if you can. I've heard it all my life. In any case, thanks for allowing me to do this introduction, because John Redcorn, the man himself, he has his roots very deeply set in the very heart of this series. He first appeared in the very first episode and went on to be regularly featured in all seasons of the show, which is quite surprising. He's someone who, on the surface anyway, seems to be the vehicle for a rather one-note joke. And I hate to be the one to break the bad news, but, Nancy Gribble, who is one scandalous lady, has cheated on her husband Dale so often and for so long that the neighborhood mostly regards John Redcorn as her main man. When Peggy confides to Min that Nancy is, gasp, a big cheater, Min's shocked reaction goes in a rather different direction than Peggy was expecting.
She's having an affair.
Oh my god. She's cheating on John Redcorn?
You know about them?
Oh, not at first. It took me about an hour.
The writers had a lot of fun playing with how outrageous the cheating was, and how utterly blind Dale is to the situation, with him even constructing this crazy story for why Joseph looks nothing like him. It's aliens, of course, and their super potent space juice.
Ew.
Joseph was conceived while I was away from Nancy, an anomaly that can only be explained by alien gene traders covertly planting my DNA into my sleeping wife.
They would also sneak John into pretty much any scene where Dale is talking about how proud he is of being Joseph's dad. I mean, Dale even says to John Redcorn's face that Joseph is, quote, Arlen's native son. Sheesh, talk about on the nose. Eventually, Nancy rediscovers her love of Dale and breaks off her relationship with John Redcorn, which got pretty messy. After the breakup, John Redcorn would still show up every now and again, each time moving him just a little bit further away from the whole haha Nancy's cheating joke. The writers definitely liked him and wanted to see what else they could do with him and his character arc.
Damn, Redcorn had a lot of potential. I wonder why so many people hate him.
Well, in my experience...
Not a riddle, Starscream.
Sorry.
Personally, I don't. Well, it's complicated. Yes, I agree with certain people that John Redcorn can be one of the most annoying people in Arlen. And unlike Cotton, Dale, or even Peggy, where you can at least say they dial their personalities up so much that their antics, while destructive, are usually pretty laughable, John Redcorn is more in line with Buck Strickland. As in, he's more realistic, sometimes too realistic. It doesn't help that in certain episodes like Suge Knight, where Hank comes to him in confidence, he acts like Hank. You know Hank, the cheap old tightwad, and who is having recurring stress dreams about Redcorn's ex-girlfriend, ex being the key word here, is apparently the same as stuffing her.
It's Nancy? My Nancy?
You having dirty dreams about my sweet Nan-Nan?
It's just, outside of moments like these, I never felt strongly about him one way or the other. I'll even go as far as to say I enjoy the weird friendship he has with Bobby in certain episodes. However, my main critique lies on what the show did with him in the later seasons, where they ruined what made him great. And some of this goes back to the earlier episodes.
But, before we can begin discussing John's growth, I think it's important to note the actors behind John's voice, and yes, I said actors, plural. John Redcorn was originally voiced by Victor Aaron, who tragically passed away in 1996, shortly before the first season of King of the Hill began airing. He recorded lines for 2 episodes, The Order of the Straight Arrow.
John Redcorn, we've got this Order of the Straight Arrow retreat tomorrow, and I was wondering...
I'd be honored to look after your wife.
And a brief appearance in Luann's saga.
Dale, I bought you a beer. Mind if I dance with your wife?
Take her.
No disrespect to Victor Aaron, but I guess because I'm more used to Joss's voice, early season John Redcorn just sounds so weird. However, to be fair, I think Victor would be a good voice actor if things went differently. The voice does suit the mystical irony I think they were going for.
Oh, the boys are gonna eat this stuff up.
The spirit bag is very sacred. You should not make light.
After Aaron's passing, John would be voiced by Jonathan Joss for the remainder of the show. It isn't currently known if Joss will be returning for the King of the Hill revival, but it would be very surprising if he didn't. There's never been any public drama between Joss and anyone else who works on King of the Hill, and since he voiced the character from 1997 to 2010, I think it's safe to say he rather enjoys the role. And besides, who could turn down that sweet, sweet money?
Also, believe it or not, Jonathan Josh, who is also in Parks and Recreation, is in a band, the Redcorn Band, 4 words. Of course he loves it. Gotta get that money for the things he wants to buy. Something I like about John Redcorn is how he conforms to the King of the Hill idea of a stereotype, while also being his own person. It's weird. Appearance-wise, John Redcorn comes off as a stereotypical Native American. Tall, broad-shouldered, long-haired, mystical. He works as a New Age healer, usually a masseuse. He even runs a sweatshop in one episode. But at the same time, he's sleeping with a married woman who he knows is married, he has a child out of wedlock he refuses to acknowledge, and he can be a whiny hypocrite. He's probably one of the few Native Americans in cartoons, if not media overall, who isn't only meant to be there as a sagely wise person, or to act as a mouthpiece for his race. Again, he's kinda like Khan and Min in that regard. When he does try to give advice, it's almost always contradictory or pathetic.
Think about what you're doing. It is wrong to take what belongs to another person and...
John Redcorn.
Well, food for thought.
Which even back in the 90s to early 2000s was a big deal. Well, then again, South Park had that one episode with the casino. Ugh, but I can never find a good time to talk about it. You guys know how I feel about representation. When you represent, you show all of it, the good and the bad, because nobody nerfect. The bad can be hard to get right, especially without making them conform to stereotypes or leaving unfortunate implications, yet to give credit where credit is due, I think the writers have succeeded. Even for people who don't like John Redcorn, it almost always has nothing to do with how the show's portraying a Native American or Indigenous American. Either or is fine. Rather, it's negative traits he possesses. And you have his second voice actor, Jonathan Joss, to thank for that. Jonathan Joss, oh my god, his name is so hard to say, I'm so sorry, was worried that John Redcorn would become a stereotype and kept encouraging the writers to give his character more to do. The problem? Fox would resist them every step of the way. Apparently, there was supposed to be one episode where John Redcorn would become a wrestler and Joseph would idolize him without learning his identity. You remember the later season episode, Smoking and the Bandit, where Dale starts doing something similar after the town passes a smoking ban? Yeah, this was originally a John Redcorn episode. Still, John Redcorn got more of a focus as time went on. One episode focused on Peggy learning that John Redcorn and Nancy were having an affair? And perhaps next to Bobby, she's the only person who did not know. Seriously, even Luann knew.
Peggy had her headache cured by John Redcorn. Stop that. Put your face back the way it was before somebody sees you.
I have questions of when and how. The point is, just put that into perspective. Eventually, starting with season 4, the show began an arc of John Redcorn's life breaking down in order to build him back up. And I'll let Mr. Review2Death handle it because I feel like a chatty Cathy.
Oh gosh, there's just so much to talk about too, my goodness. It wasn't until we started to write this script and when we got to the whole point in season 4 where the breakup happens that I realized that yes, John Redcorn starts to go through a midlife crisis at this point in the show. He's the aging hot stuff guy who doesn't want to just, fool around with any old person. He wants to leave a legacy.
Oh, hitting you won't change anything. I'll still be living in a trailer. No wife, no land.
And it's in season 4, when the writers decide to split up John and Nancy, that they seem to already have a pretty good idea of where to take his character. When Nancy calls up John to apologize for Dale, beating him up and trying to get back together with him, John tells her no, saying, quote, "He's 36 years old. He doesn't need this crap."
Wait, he's 36? He's younger than Nancy.
Guess he has a thing for older women.
I should get back to the healing center.
Oh, but we were gonna buy you a bathing suit.
Next time, okay? That's my girl.
He becomes very aware that he is approaching middle age, and that he may not be as desirable as he used to be, or at least that the end of his carefree youth is close at hand. It won't all be shug and candy for much longer.
Now that you mention it, his home life might also be another trigger, as King of the Hill is both a typical sitcom, and in Texas, everybody's a homeowner. This even applies to childless adults like Bill and Boomhauer.
Unless dang old Kid Hauser is canon.
Personally, I wouldn't mind living in a trailer, as long as you have insurance. You have everything you could need and anything else, you go into town to get it. It makes road trips all the more easier, and it would provide for a great YouTube channel. Hey, you gotta pay for gas somehow. John Redcorn is the only character who does not have a traditional home, so to speak. He doesn't even have a neighborhood. He lives on the outskirts of town all by himself. Again, nothing wrong with it, but in a highly traditional, conservative place like Arlen, it's just more salt in the wound. Maybe it explains some of his weirder behaviors, like the way he tries to get close to Joseph. I mean, come on, did he even care about Joseph?
Oh, Kitty Monk, I think he definitely cared about Joseph. I mean, he was there in the background, sort of around in the orbit, but let's just say he was a little, distracted to do much parenting.
Yes, I know. It's just, I've healed you 3 to 5 nights a week for many years. I could really use a night off.
Good lord.
Seriously, this dude deserves a case full of Gatorade.
Anyway, without that drain on his electrolytes going on, and with him getting older, it wasn't surprising that he started to ask himself, what kind of legacy am I gonna leave behind? At first, he decides to make it all about Joseph. He attempts to get Joseph interested in John's culture, but Joseph is extremely disinterested. To Joseph, this is just Mr. Redcorn going on and on about something that has no direct impact on his life, just another lecture at school.
Our land was taken from us by the white men.
Joseph's apathy sends John into this total panic, especially when Bobby reveals that John's people were once cannibals in the past.
Joseph, don't listen to him. That was over 700 years ago!
Get your hands off me, you cannibal freak!
Joseph's disgust and fear of John is the ultimate embodiment of his non-existent legacy. He now has nothing, not even a scandalous relationship. And even though I would say he has 100% earned this situation, given how flagrant and ongoing the cheating was, we can at least see why this situation upsets him. But in the end, he does get a degree of closure. He decides to gift Dale the 12 acres of land that John received in a settlement from the government, which means that the land will eventually go to Joseph after Dale's passing.
Thanks, Captain Bringdown.
I think what makes this situation more ironic is he could have passed his culture on to Bobby. True, Bobby isn't a Native American, yet we know that Bobby doesn't mind being an ally and getting the word out there. But no, it has to be Joseph.
Hello, Bobby. How's a good fight?
Well, Mr. Redcorn, I found...
Hey, there's Joseph.
I get it, but Hey.
With that situation squared away, what does John Redcorn decide to do next? Well, I'll let Kitty Monk talk all about that.
TY. It's the calm before the storm. In Redcorn Gambles His Future, John Redcorn gets together with Lucky and Elvin and forms a band called Big a Mountain of Fudge Cake. Why does that sound like his OnlyFans username? Anyhow, Big a Mountain of Fudge Cake. Yes, you have to say it like that. Dale says it like that.
Big a Mountain of Fudge Cake
is a metal band, like 40 years too late. Don't worry, copyright prevents me from playing the song, and I'm sparing you the embarrassment. Trust me, they're awful. They're worse than Winger. That should tell you all you need to know. As a result, they can't secure many gigs, and whatever gigs they do manage to get, they always screw up.
You finished already?
We're finished forever.
Got fired from playing for free. It don't get any lower than that.
John Redcorn hears how Hank is having trouble booking a band for the Strickland family picnic and tries to ask him, not too subtly, one of those two, if he could perform. When Hank politely says that he'd rather jam glass shards into his eardrums over booking his band, John Redcorn implies why he's been so insistent on success. He's having a midlife crisis.
You start doing massage to pay the bills, and you tell yourself just a few more years, and then one day you look up and you're 40. You're 40, Hank!
Ugh, John Redcorn, stop reminding me of where I might be in 17 years. Hank tries to get him off his back by giving him advice.
Maybe what you need to do is to, bet on yourself.
Bet on myself?
Sure. It's your dream. You make it happen.
You know, honestly, this is great advice, just not a good situation to give the advice. John Redcorn decides to put his land to good use by building a casino. That way, he can both make money and have a place for Fudge Cake to play all the time. He even gets involved with super sketchy Henry Mankiller, awesome name, to make it happen. Later, during a Fudge Cake's opening night, he discovers that their entire business venture is illegal. Henry Mankiller scammed him, and there are no Native American casinos in Texas? What?
And that land is in Texas, where there is no Indian gaming.
How can this be happening?
Texas tribes traded their federal gaming rights for state recognition of their tribes.
Okay, I did a little research and apparently this is not true. Texas does indeed have Native American gambling. There are 2 casinos currently in Texas. Maybe you can't play table games like poker or blackjack, but you could still play slot machines, bingo, and sometimes even live poker. Again, surprised to learn this fact, but there are currently 29 states where Native American casinos are legal. Heck, even Alaska has a couple. There are reasons why Texas, despite being the second biggest state in terms of landmass, only has 2, and these are reasons I can't get into. If somebody knows, please comment down below. Just know that this is not true, and this part of the episode really bugs me. What's worse is now, John Redcorn owes a bunch of money, and to avoid legal action, he has to permit to allow toxic dumping on his land.
I could sue you.
Possibly, but you'd spend years in the white man's courts fighting the white man's lawyers, which we have a lot of.
That sucks too. Don't worry, it does get better. Bloomers, the guy Hank ended up hiring instead, doesn't show up to the Strickland family picnic. Probably because he's off making another South Park video. You know I had to. Hank calls up John Redcorn and with no other option, requests that he and his band come play. But Lucky and Elvin refuse.
Family days?
That ain't rock and roll.
What does it matter? An audience is an audience.
Fudge Cake don't play family picnics.
So Redcorn shows up alone and finds that he has a talent at using his music to get children to calm down, changing up the lyrics to be more family friendly. He ends up becoming a successful children's musician and even turns his land into a Chuck E. Cheese funland type of place. It's really sweet. The problem with this plot line, or at least my problem with the plotline is it leans way too far into the old King of the Hill subtlety, as in they imply it happens in one episode and never really follow up on it after. They did the same thing with Cotton, where they imply Dee Dee left him for some reason they never say, and it caused him to regress back into hating the Japanese. But they never actually do anything with it. Sorry, getting off track. Point is, it sucks because the midlife crisis angle would explain a lot of John Redcorn's actions. In Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, Nancy learns that John Redcorn has been trying to rekindle their romance. He calls the station she works at all hours of the day, stalks her in his Jeep, and tries to serenade her with songs he wrote about her. Well, mostly songs he wrote for work with the lyrics changed, like this much.
I wrote a song for you. It's about a beautiful tree named Fancy. Ignore the end. The tree becomes a home for a squirrel with body image issues.
In Nancy Boys, John Redcorn already learned his lesson in trying to sleep with Nancy, realizing that while he might love her or think they had something, she's still married, and it's unfair to both Dale and Joseph to continue their relationship.
After all the help I've given you?
Dale, you've become a true friend, which is why it would be unprofessional of me to continue seeing your wife.
They never exactly say why he's doing it in this episode, but again, the whole midlife crisis angle, you know, like in Redcorn gambles his future, would be a great explanation. Maybe John Redcorn and Nancy had a bond that went beyond getting treated for migraines. The missionary treatment. Wait, am I allowed to make that joke? And she was the only woman he ever did love. Or maybe they could be about to go through with it and then realize that they were romanticizing something that was purely physical, and to rush back into it once again would ruin everything. Wait, oh my god, I think I'm talking too much again. Reviewed to Death, what do you think?
Oh gosh, great question. Sheesh. I think there's a lot of ways we could interpret this relationship, mostly because John Redcorn doesn't seem to really understand what he wants out of it. Sometimes it feels like they might actually love each other, but then they'll swing back into just a physical relationship. Although to be honest, I don't think Nancy ever really loved John Redcorn. As she said in that swan boat, "Is it any surprise I need two men? One of them is always letting me down." To me, this means that she gets emotional love from Dale and physical love from John Redcorn. As for John himself, if he does love Nancy, then he doesn't allow that love to get in the way of him sleeping around.
You're saying Dale didn't cheat on me even once?
Maybe there were isolated incidents, but Dale always took precautions.
So now it's incidents?
There is no commitment, not even at a basic level. So no, I do not think they love each other, or if they do, it's a kind that is not very common. Although I think if they ever seriously tried to live together, they would get sick of each other in less than a week. What would they even talk about? I cannot picture them having like a normal conversation, can you? Although this does not mean that John is completely incapable of loving someone, which gets us to our next topic.
In Untitled, like McCormick Project, not allowed to say the other title, and sorry, Hulu only goes by the first one, Bill begins to date a woman named Charlene, who has 2 children from previous relationships, Kate and Drew.
Wow, what a beautiful lawn. It looks just like a golf course.
Kate, why do you sound like Joseph before he went to summer camp? Or Luann? I don't recall her smoking. That is a filthy habit. So function, damn you. Things seem like Bill finally found happiness. And a family to boot. Bobby and Joseph bond with the kids, and it's like, as Bill says,
it's like I got married at 30 and my wife never left me.
At least until...
Hi.
Dale begins to suspect something's wrong with Kate, eventually testing her DNA and realizing...
So this means...
Precisely. Kate is my daughter.
Man, if they ever gave out medals for potency, Dale would take home the silver. I wonder who would take home the gold.
Big Bad John.
He is not the father, it's Dale. Beyond keeping Dale and Joseph separate, because they're from Texas, not Arkansas, Hank and Peggy are fine to just keep it a secret and treat it as one more part of the neighborhood gossip. But Dale thinks, shh. Hell to the no, he tells Nancy, who promptly tells John Redcorn.
Please, it's very complex.
Huh.
No, it's pretty bearskin. You don't like this pun? Let's see you do better. Seriously, if you want to do better, you can. John Redcorn spies on the family and discovers that Kate's baby mama is one of his past flings, a former dancer.
Candy?
Sorry, I don't have any.
Dale decides that he doesn't want his child to be raised by an idiot and teams up with John Redcorn to get him to homewreck another family. Wow, and I thought Stanley Spornak couldn't keep the wrecking ball in his pants. He takes Charlene on dates and she tells Bill she's off meeting with her old girlfriends. As a result, Bill has to work overtime taking care of Kate and Drew with little to no help. Thankfully, upon learning the truth, Bill breaks up with her amicably, which means she's now free to be with John Redcorn.
Sure was nice of Redcorn to agree to raise my child for me. Can't say I'd do the same.
Now this could have been a great ending for John Redcorn and the whole midlife crisis storyline. He was always disappointed he could never have a lover who wants him for reasons that go beyond the physical, or a child to pass on his heritage and truly be a father too. Now he has both. Heck, he even has a son if we count Drew. He gets a second chance. A chance at a normal life. But here's the problem. This was an era when the show wasn't allowed to do full season plot lines like before. Kate, Charlene, Drew basically disappear into the mist, never to be heard from again. John Redcorn goes back to being a children's musician and selling fireworks, and we hear nothing about his home life. Rats. Okay, that was John Redcorn, one of the most divisive characters in King of the Hill. One of the show's strengths is how they're able to tell a story that spans multiple episodes, even in the later seasons where the network disallowed any form of story, to the point where Luann was pregnant for 3 seasons but showed no sign of it. They still did their best to give him a storyline that worked. The finale could have been a little better, and hey, it would have been fun to see his new girlfriend and stepchildren one more time, but what we got was alright in my book. Okay, Reviewed to Death. Do you have any last words?
I do actually. 2 quick last points. First, I really want to agree with you and say that John Redcorn managed to land in a pretty decent endpoint. Considering how the final seasons really de-emphasized longer plot lines, it is very appreciated that they didn't just get rid of him entirely. That would have been, pretty unsatisfying for such a complex guy. And second of all, I gotta say a big thank you, Kitty Monk. This was a lot of fun, and I'm honored to have been invited on. Such an excellent host.
Happy I can help. Good luck to you and your future endeavors. Like and subscribe to this channel, and my other channel, The Habit, and also Reviewed to Death's channel. And bye!